The morning mist clings to Guadalcanal's jungle canopy like a shroud. August 7th, 1942. Colonel Ichiki Kiyono adjusts his binoculars with steady hands, the same hands that once applauded the Pearl Harbor attack reports in Tokyo. From his concealed observation post, he scans the empty Pacific horizon, confident in what he knows. The Americans are soft, their military uncoordinated, their amphibious capabilities laughable compared to Japanese mastery. The silence breaks. A lookout's voice cracks through the humid air. Ships! American ships on the horizon. Ichiki raises his binoculars again, expecting to see a small, disorganized probe, maybe a dozen vessels attempting some foolish reconnaissance. What fills his lenses instead makes his breath catch in his throat. Ships, hundreds of them, stretching across the horizon to the limit of sight and well beyond, as he would later write in his final report. Transport ships, destroyers, cruisers, battleships, an armada so vast it seems to curve with the earth itself. They move in perfect formation, each vessel precisely positioned, creating geometric patterns across the blue water that would make a parade ground commander weep with envy. "Impossible," he whispers. The radio crackles to life. Panicked voices flood the airwaves from observation posts across the island. The Americans are coming in full force. The transmission cuts to static. Then another voice, higher pitched, "Count over 800 ships." Repeat, "Over 800 ships approaching." Ichiki's hands tremble slightly as he lowers the binoculars. He's studied at the Imperial Naval Academy. He's witnessed Japan's 29 successful amphibious landings from China to the Philippines. He knows what amphibious warfare looks like. The chaos, the confusion, the inevitable mistakes that cost lives and battles. What approaches Guadalcanal defies everything he understands about military coordination. The American fleet begins its approach in waves, not random waves, but precisely timed formations that speak to a level of planning and coordination that shouldn't be possible. Naval guns train toward shore in synchronized movements. Aircraft appear overhead, not in scattered formations, but in perfect V patterns that suggest radio coordination beyond Japanese capabilities. Ichiki watches destroyer escorts move into position with mathematical precision. Landing craft begin lowering from transport ships with clockwork timing. Each movement flows into the next, like a choreographed dance performed by nearly 1,000 ships and tens of thousands of men. His aide approaches, notebook ready for orders. "Sir, your instructions?" Ichiki stares at the approaching fleet, his worldview beginning to crack like ice in spring sun. The Americans he'd dismissed as industrialized but incompetent are demonstrating coordination that makes Japanese operations look amateurish by comparison. "How?" he asks aloud, not expecting an answer. How could any force coordinate such massive, complex operations with machine-like precision? The question hangs in the tropical air as the first American shells begin their precisely calculated trajectory toward Japanese positions. 6 months earlier, in the mahogany-paneled briefing rooms of Imperial Naval Headquarters, the mood had been triumphant. Colonel Ichiki had stood among Japan's finest military minds, studying maps dotted with red flags marking their amphibious victories. 29 successful landings. From the beaches of China to the atolls of the Pacific, Japanese forces had perfected the art of seaborne assault. "We are the masters of amphibious warfare," Admiral Yamamoto had declared, his voice carrying the weight of undeniable experience. "The Americans build ships, but they don't understand the sea. They have factories, but they lack the warrior spirit for complex operations." The assessment had seemed logical, even conservative. American forces in the Philippines had crumbled quickly. Their defense of Wake Island, while brave, had lasted only weeks. Every intelligence report suggested American military doctrine remained focused on European-style land warfare, with amphibious operations treated as afterthoughts. Now, watching the American Armada approach with mechanical precision, Ichiki feels that confidence evaporating like morning mist. The first hint had come at Tarawa, just months before. Japanese survivors spoke of something they called those little boats on wheels, American LVTS that crossed coral reefs in perfect waves, delivering troops directly to beaches while Japanese defenders expected them to founder in shallow water. The descriptions had seemed exaggerated, products of defeat and demoralization. But the pattern continued. At every American landing, reports described coordination that exceeded theoretical possibilities. Naval gunfire that lifted at precisely the moment landing craft reached the surf line. Airstrikes timed to the minute with ship movements. Artillery support that somehow coordinated between Navy guns offshore, Marine artillery on the beach, and Army units inland, all operating as a single integrated weapon system. Ichiki had dismissed these reports as American propaganda or Japanese exaggeration. No military force could achieve such coordination across multiple services, multiple command structures, multiple communication systems. The fog of war made precise timing impossible. Equipment failures guaranteed confusion. Human error ensured chaos. Yet here, approaching Guadalcanal, moves a fleet that suggests someone has solved the fundamental problem of military coordination. Through his binoculars, Ichiki watches American destroyers take positions for preliminary bombardment. Each ship moves to its assigned coordinates with navigation precision that would impress peacetime harbor pilots. No confusion, no course corrections, no radio chatter seeking clarification. 800 ships moving like a single organism, controlled by a single mind. The personal stakes crash over him like a cold wave. His family name traces back to samurai who served the Tokugawa shoguns. His father died in the service of the emperor during the Russo-Japanese War. His son, barely 16, dreams of naval aviation and glory in the Pacific. Everything Ichiki represents, Japanese military excellence, centuries of warrior tradition, the racial superiority that justified this war, depends on Japanese tactical and organizational dominance. But the evidence before his eyes suggests that dominance has not just been challenged, but completely reversed. American aircraft appear overhead in formations so precise they could be measured with geometry instruments. Fighter escorts maintain exact spacing. Dive bombers approach in perfectly timed waves. The radio chatter he intercepts reveals coordination protocols his own Air Force considers impossible. Pilots receiving precise targeting instructions updated in real time based on naval gunfire results and ground troop movements. "Sir," his aide reports, voice tight with disbelief. Radio intercepts indicate American forces are coordinating simultaneous landings at multiple beaches. Naval gunfire is being adjusted by ground observers. Airstrikes are being redirected based on troop movements, and supply vessels are already moving toward assigned beach positions. Ichiki nods grimly. In Japanese doctrine, such coordination would require weeks of planning, multiple rehearsals, and inevitably would break down under combat conditions. The Americans appear to be coordinating these complex operations in real time, adjusting to battlefield conditions with a flexibility that shouldn't exist. The morning sun climbs higher, burning away the mist and revealing the full scope of what approaches. Transport ships disgorge landing craft in synchronized waves. Each wave contains precisely the right mix of infantry, armor, artillery, and supplies. Communication ships coordinate the entire operation with radio discipline that rivals Japanese fleet exercises. Most disturbing of all, Ichiki realizes he's witnessing not just superior numbers or better equipment, but a fundamental revolution in military organization. The Americans have somehow solved problems that Japanese military theorists considered unsolvable. How to coordinate multiple services across vast distances in real-time combat conditions. His hands find the personal letter in his breast pocket. His wife's latest correspondence mentioning their son's eagerness to join the Naval Air Service. The boy believes, as Ichiki once believed, that Japanese military excellence guarantees victory. That superior warrior spirit compensates for any material disadvantage. That coordination and discipline are uniquely Japanese virtues. The approaching American fleet suggests those beliefs are about to be tested in ways no one anticipated. As the first American landing craft hit the water, moving toward shore in perfectly timed waves while naval gunfire provides precisely coordinated support, Ichiki understands he's about to witness something that will change not just this battle, but the entire character of warfare in the Pacific. The question that haunts him isn't whether the Americans will land successfully. That seems inevitable. The question is how Japanese military doctrine will survive the shock of discovering that everything they believed about American tactical incompetence was catastrophically wrong. June 15, 1944. Saipan. Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo stands on the observation deck of his command bunker, the same man who led the Pearl Harbor attack barely 2.5 years ago. Through his binoculars, German-made Zeiss lenses that once showed him burning American battleships in Hawaiian waters, he now watches those same battleships approaching his defensive lines. The irony strikes him like a physical blow. "How ironic," he murmurs to his staff officer. Some of those approaching vessels bear the scars he inflicted at Pearl Harbor. The USS Pennsylvania, USS Maryland, USS Tennessee. Ships he'd left burning and broken now steam toward Saipan, fully repaired, modernized, and accompanied by the largest fleet ever assembled in the Pacific. 800 ships of the Fifth Fleet approach in formation so perfect it defies human capability. Nagumo, who coordinated the 6-carrier strike force that achieved complete tactical surprise at Pearl Harbor, watches coordination that makes his greatest victory look like amateur hour. "This isn't the same American military we defeated," he says quietly, his voice carrying a weight his staff has never heard before. The American fleet begins its preliminary bombardment at exactly 0545 hours. Not approximately 0545. Exactly 0545. With each ship's guns opening fire within seconds of each other across a battle line stretching 15 miles. The timing precision suggests communication and coordination capabilities that shouldn't exist in combat conditions. Through radio intercepts, Nagumo's intelligence staff provides real-time updates that chill him to the bone. "Sir, American naval gunfire is being directed by aircraft spotters coordinating with ground observers who haven't even landed yet. Admiral, their airstrikes are timed to lift fire exactly as landing craft reach the surf line. We're monitoring their coordination frequencies." "Sir, supply vessels are already moving toward beach positions assigned by commanders still aboard transport ships." Each report describes coordination that violates everything Nagumo understands about military operations. In Japanese doctrine, such precision requires extensive rehearsal, perfect conditions, and inevitably breaks down under combat stress. The Americans appear to be improvising this coordination in real time while under fire. The landing craft launch in waves so precisely timed they could be choreographed. First wave, assault troops with precisely the right mix of infantry and engineers. Second wave, armor and heavy weapons, timed to arrive exactly as the beachhead needs reinforcement. Third wave, artillery and command elements, positioned to support operations that haven't happened yet, but will unfold according to plan. Nagumo watches American Sherman tanks roll off landing craft into perfectly prepared positions. Japanese intelligence had reported American armor as mechanically unreliable and tactically clumsy. These tanks move with precision that suggests not just mechanical reliability, but coordination with infantry, artillery, and air support that defies Japanese understanding of combined arms warfare. "Sir," a communications officer approaches at a run. Marine radio transmission intercepted. Quote, "Casualties unexpectedly light. Proceeding toward airstrip against light resistance." End quote. Nagumo lowers his binoculars. Light resistance. His carefully prepared defenses. His interlocking fields of fire. His months of preparation. Dismissed as light resistance by American forces who landed barely 3 hours ago. But the true shock comes as Japanese defenders emerge from their cave positions to counterattack. What they encounter isn't just superior firepower. It's coordination that seems to anticipate their every move. American flamethrower teams advance with infantry support that appears exactly when needed. Naval gunfire adjusts in real time based on radio calls from ground observers. Airstrikes arrive precisely timed to support ground advances, with pilots receiving updated targeting information while aircraft are still airborne. Most devastating of all, American forces coordinate tank, infantry, artillery, naval gunfire, and air support as a single integrated weapon system. When Japanese forces attempt their traditional night infiltration tactics, they discover American commanders have coordinated illumination rounds, radar-directed gunfire, and positioned reserves with precision that turns night attacks into suicide missions. Through his command bunker's communication system, Nagumo monitors the psychological disintegration of his defense force in real time. Americans, advancing with tanks and flamethrowers in perfect coordination. We cannot stop them. Naval gunfire is too precise. They're hitting targets we cannot see. Their artillery coordinates with their aircraft. Impossible to find cover. By noon, American forces have penetrated defenses that should have held for weeks. Their advance continues with mechanical precision, each element supporting the others with coordination that seems to anticipate Japanese defensive tactics before they're employed. Nagumo's staff officer approaches, his face pale. "Admiral, request permission to begin withdrawal to secondary defensive positions." "There are no secondary positions," Nagumo replies quietly. "There are no positions that can survive this level of coordination." He watches American forces advance with tanks providing mobile artillery support, while infantry secures positions for artillery that arrives exactly when needed. Supply lines function with precision that keeps ammunition, fuel, and reinforcements flowing to precisely the right positions at exactly the right times. The psychological impact hits him like a physical blow. At Pearl Harbor, he'd achieved tactical surprise through careful planning and perfect execution by a relatively small force. The Americans approaching Saipan demonstrate coordination of hundreds of thousands of men, thousands of vehicles, hundreds of ships, and countless aircraft operating as a single integrated organism. "The Americans have surpassed us," he tells his staff, the words feeling like a confession of personal failure. "They haven't just matched our coordination, they've revolutionized it." Through radio intercepts, he learns American forces are simultaneously coordinating operations across multiple beaches while maintaining supply lines, air support, and naval gunfire, with precision that suggests communication capabilities beyond Japanese technological understanding. The final crushing realization comes as American forces overrun his outer defenses ahead of schedule while maintaining perfect coordination. These aren't the confused, uncoordinated Americans of Japanese propaganda. These are forces that have learned, adapted, and perfected amphibious warfare beyond Japanese comprehension. As evening approaches, Nagumo watches American forces dig in with the same mechanical precision they displayed in attacking. Supply vessels arrive at predetermined positions. Artillery establishes firing positions with interlocking fields of fire. Air patrols maintain perfect coverage. Communication networks function with reliability that makes Japanese systems seem primitive. His aide approaches with the final intelligence report of the day. "Sir, American casualties significantly below projections. Their coordination reduced expected losses by approximately 70%. Nagumo nods grimly. Superior coordination hasn't just made American forces more effective, it's made them nearly invulnerable to traditional Japanese defensive tactics. Looking out at the American positions, illuminated by precise patterns of defensive fires and patrolled by coordinated air and ground forces, Nagumo understands he's witnessing the death of Japanese military supremacy in the Pacific. The same organizational genius that built American industrial capacity has now been applied to military coordination. The result isn't just superior American forces. It's a revolution in warfare that makes Japanese tactical doctrine obsolete. As he prepares his final report to Imperial headquarters, Nagumo chooses his words carefully. The war situation is most serious. American coordination's capabilities exceed all projections. Recommend immediate strategic reassessment. But privately, watching American forces consolidate their positions with the same machine-like precision they displayed in landing, he knows the truth. The war is lost. Not because of American industrial capacity or numerical superiority, but because they've achieved a level of military coordination that makes Japanese resistance increasingly futile. The Americans have done more than learn amphibious warfare. They've perfected it beyond Japanese recognition. Admiral Nagumo never lived to see the full consequences of what he witnessed at Saipan. 3 weeks later, as American forces completed their coordinated conquest of the island with the same mechanical precision he'd observed in their landing, he chose ritual suicide over the shame of defeat. His final letter to his wife carried a simple message: the Americans have become something we never anticipated. But Nagumo's death marked only the beginning of a cascade of realizations rippling through Japanese command structures. At Iwo Jima, General Tadamichi Kuribayashi read detailed reports of American coordination capabilities and completely revolutionized Japanese defensive strategy. Gone were assumptions of American tactical incompetence. Instead, Kuribayashi designed defenses specifically to counter the precise coordination that had devastated Saipan. "We must assume," he wrote to Imperial headquarters, "that American forces will coordinate naval gunfire, airstrikes, and ground advances with machine-like precision. Our defenses must be designed accordingly." The psychological impact reached the highest levels of Japanese leadership. Emperor Hirohito, reviewing after-action reports from Saipan, made his first private admission that victory might be impossible. The war situation is most serious. The Americans have capabilities we did not foresee. Within weeks of Saipan's fall, the Tojo cabinet resigned in disgrace. Japanese strategic planning shifted from offensive operations to purely defensive strategies designed to make American advances so costly that negotiated peace might be possible. The dream of Japanese expansion across the Pacific died in the perfectly coordinated waves of American landing craft at Saipan. Military historians would later identify the coordination revolution that shocked Japanese observers as the result of innovations that seemed almost mundane but proved strategically decisive. Joint Assault Signal Companies, JASCOs, provided communication capabilities that allowed real-time coordination between Navy, Marine, and Army units. Specialized amphibious doctrine development created standardized procedures that enabled precise timing across multiple services. Most importantly, American industrial capacity enabled the creation of specialized equipment and training programs that made coordination possible at unprecedented scales. While Japanese forces struggled with equipment shortages and improvised communication systems, American forces trained with standardized equipment, standardized procedures, and communication systems designed specifically for coordinated operations. The transformation was so complete that by 1945, Japanese military planning assumed American coordination capabilities that would have seemed impossible just 3 years earlier. Defense plans anticipated precisely timed airstrikes, naval gunfire adjusted by ground observers, and supply systems that functioned with industrial efficiency even in combat conditions. General MacArthur's island-hopping strategy succeeded not just because of American material superiority, but because coordination capabilities made each landing more efficient than the last. Lessons learned at Guadalcanal improved operations at Tarawa. Tarawa's innovations enhanced coordination at Saipan. By Okinawa, American amphibious coordination had achieved a level of precision that made Japanese resistance tragically futile. The human cost of this coordination revolution extended beyond military casualties. Japanese civilians, told for years that American forces were soft and uncoordinated, faced the psychological shock of witnessing military efficiency that exceeded Japanese capabilities. The propaganda image of bumbling American soldiers crumbled when confronted with the reality of forces that operated with clockwork precision. Modern military analysts studying Pacific War operations identify the coordination breakthrough as a preview of contemporary warfare. Today's emphasis on joint operations, real-time intelligence sharing, and coordinated multi-domain operations traces directly to innovations first demonstrated in the Pacific. The networking capabilities that enable modern military coordination evolved from communication systems first tested under fire at Guadalcanal and perfected at Saipan. Perhaps most significantly, the coordination revolution demonstrated how organizational innovation can become a decisive force multiplier. American forces didn't just outproduce Japanese industry, they out-coordinated Japanese military excellence. Superior organization proved more decisive than superior individual fighting spirit. The lesson resonates in contemporary military doctrine. Technological superiority means little without the organizational capabilities to coordinate complex operations across multiple domains. The American military's current emphasis on joint operations, multi-service coordination, and real-time information sharing reflects lessons learned from the coordination shock that devastated Japanese resistance in the Pacific. Today, as military strategists study coordination challenges in multi-domain warfare, they return repeatedly to the Pacific War example. The Japanese military's shock at American amphibious coordination provides a cautionary tale about underestimating organizational innovation while focusing exclusively on equipment and individual capabilities. The Americans hadn't just learned amphibious warfare from Japanese masters. They'd revolutionized it through organizational innovation that made traditional tactical doctrines obsolete. That revolution, first witnessed through Japanese binoculars at Guadalcanal and perfected under Japanese observation at Saipan, fundamentally changed the nature of modern warfare. The coordination revolution that stunned Japanese observers created the foundation for every military operation that followed. Subscribe to discover more untold stories of how organizational innovation shaped the outcome of World War II and continues to influence military strategy today.